A definition of sorcery is the ability to perceive more than the average human being, whose perception of the universe is limited. Surely, when you hear the word sorcery, you imagine a character in a leather cloak with long black hair, muttering something under their breath and shocking others with their, to put it mildly, strange words and actions. This is exactly how the entertainment industry has distorted the concept of sorcery in people's minds. But what is the truth? Let's talk about it. Since the most ancient times, a certain secret knowledge has existed across the earth, passed down from master to disciple and hidden from ordinary, uninitiated people. This knowledge was not perceived by the masses, who believed that life was nothing more than a monotonous gray sequence of days, and that the world was a hostile structure where one had to fight for a place under the sun. Seeing this state of affairs, the keepers of the secret knowledge concealed it from ordinary people, for the mysteries accessible to anyone possessing this knowledge could harm those who were not ready to accept them and reconsider their perception of reality. This knowledge was sorcery. However, sorcery is not something that looms as a frightening anomaly in human life. Rather, it is profound knowledge about the world and the human being itself, without which one cannot live a truly full and illusion-free life. And here's why. Let's take a few moments to symbolically imagine sorcery as a triangle. There are three types of sorcery: black sorcery, white sorcery, and higher or transcendental sorcery. Black sorcery is aimed at satisfying and indulging the weaknesses of the body and the animalistic soul of a person, turning them into a slave to their base inclinations. This includes various rituals for attracting money, sexual relationships, material success, fortune-telling. In other words, everything that binds consciousness to a mundane and mercantile perception of the world. Black sorcery is the path of a parasite, selfishly exploiting the forces of nature. It is a road of suffering, pain, and depletion. White sorcery unveils the higher or divine soul within a person and teaches everyone to live in harmony with nature, to feel and share warmth with one another. Among other things, it manifests in the form of healing through medicinal herbs and restoring health by harnessing the forces of nature. And finally, transcendental sorcery allows a person to establish a connection with their spirit, hear their higher self, and restore the seeker's memory of their eternal divine origin. It is higher sorcery that serves as the path for every individual to their true destiny. Of course, when working with new ideas, it is necessary to interact with those for whom such ideas have become part of their lives, but such people may not be around. By the way, for this purpose, we created the Three Suns Closed Club, in which, together with the participants, we touch upon the unknown sides of both the spiritual nature of man and the unsolved mysteries of the world and the cosmos. It is the Three Suns Closed Club that helps to find like-minded people and begin to perceive the world better, clearer, and deeper. In the Closed Club, we publish all necessary information, links to films, books, scientific articles, etc. that will help you to get personal enlightenment. In case you want to join us in the Three Suns Closed Club and learn to perceive new ideas and begin to develop magical thinking that will enrich your life, we will leave a link in the description of the video. Notice that in the symbolic triangle, the third vertex, corresponding to higher sorcery, is positioned above the plane where the other two vertices, forming its base, reside. Symbolically, this means that transcendental sorcery elevates a person beyond the realm of purely material pursuits, subordinating their animalistic inclinations to the higher principle and deifying the human soul. Thus, sorcery allows one to perceive ordinary life from the heights of the divine, immortal principle within, and at the same time maintain a connection with external reality, manifesting this principle in the visible world. Transcendental sorcery is an expression of ordered rationality, clarity, sobriety, and the ability to strategically comprehend one's own life. From this point on, when we refer to sorcery, we will specifically mean Transcendental Sorcery. Sorcery reveals to the sincere seeking heart the knowledge that a sorcerer is none other than the human being itself, whose nature from birth is not only conditioned by physical perception of the world, but is also deeply intertwined with the movement of the celestial lights, the stars, and the universe. The sorcerer's essence within a person teaches them to be a brother or sister to the entire world and grants a life aligned with the same laws that govern the earth and the vast cosmos. The tragedy, however, lies in the fact that a person forgets their sorcerer's origin because throughout life they ignore the unseen part of their being, one that inseparably connects them to the center of creation and allows their heart to beat in harmony with the pulse of the spiritual evolution of all existence. The wise saw in this forgetfulness the true reason why a man became unhappy and lonely. Only sorcery can restore the memory of one's divine origin and lead a person back to a life of true happiness. Sorcery is the path of inner transformation, a profound perception of everyday life and the only true means of altering reality. If the world of forms is the realm of intellect and logic, then sorcery is an all-encompassing domain, one that includes logic and intellect, yet resonates with the subtlest vibrations of the human soul. Sorcery allows one to peer beyond the gray, dusty veil of the ordinary and witness an inexplicable yet majestic vision of the world, painted by creation itself and hidden behind that veil. It is the ability to see more, perceive more finely, and live a life far more elevated than one consumed by mere survival and routine. Put simply, anyone who seeks to move beyond conventional perceptions of the world and is driven to explore their own inner, hidden essence can confidently consider themselves a sorcerer in the making. The wise have always known that only by awakening their sorcerous nature can a person remember their true purpose, unlock their power, and live the life worthy of the gods themselves. So, let's summarize. What does it mean to practice sorcery? To practice sorcery means to break free from stereotypical perceptions of reality, to carefully and gently transcend the power of social limitations imposed by tradition and culture. Sorcery teaches one not to indulge in personal weaknesses. It directly touches the soul and awakens the spirit within, ennobling the former and strengthening the latter. It is sorcery that enables a person to take full control of their life and find a way out of even the most seemingly impossible situations. And most importantly, to practice sorcery means to serve the well-being of the world and all of humanity. After all, sorcery is not just a part of life, it is life itself in all its infinite diversity and magnificence. And now, friends, write us in comments, does this description resemble the stereotypical portrayal of sorcery created by television and the internet? It is essential to realize that in order to truly connect with sorcery, one must learn to see and think sorcerously, embracing sorcerous ideas as the foundation of life. By perceiving these ideas and learning to think beyond stereotypes, cliches, and superstitions, basing on their own spirit, a person becomes impervious to the entrenched social programs that reduce their existence from the grandeur of the universe to the level of an ordinary taxpayer and consumer. Here are 3 sorcerous ideas that we recommend you realize and reconsider first. The first sorcerous idea: a human being is not just a physical body, but a complex, threefold structure composed of spirit, soul, and body. Spirit is an ineffable, immortal essence that exists within eternity itself, and through the feeling and perceiving soul, animates the human body. The life you possess is not lived by your body, it is experienced and expressed by your higher self, your spirit. This means that your personal, family, and social life are merely earthly reflections of a vast cosmic life, one that makes you equal to constellations, suns, and galaxies, and that is an inseparable part of the great and beautiful symphony, played by evolution in the divine halls of creation. And now, do you feel the true scale of your existence? In other words, The more elevated the sorceress ideas a person embraces, the greater the events that unfold in their life, and the more deeply and profoundly they unlock their sorceress potential and true destiny. Conversely, the more one rejects sorceress knowledge, the more grounded and controlled by circumstances they become. As a result, they understand less and less about what is truly happening in their life. And here you could ask, why then does almost everyone ignore their sorceress nature? This brings us to the second sorceress idea. Human consciousness is dual. One part of consciousness is trapped under a destructive influence, preventing people from seeing beyond the surface and understanding the true essence of events. This part is called mundane consciousness, or the predator's consciousness. The second part frees a person from this influence. This is true consciousness, or the consciousness of spirit. The predator's consciousness makes people feel like victims of circumstances and fills them with self-pity. Deeply concealing this self-pity from others and even from themselves, people mask this destructive feeling under an inflated sense of self-importance. In reality, the more important a person feels, the more pathetic they perceive themselves to be, and the more they secretly pity themselves. The predator hides a person's sorceress nature from them. The consciousness of spirit, however, grants sorceress perception and allows one to live with full awareness. This means that anyone can break free from the predator's grip and build their life according to the laws of creation, thus arranging it in the best possible way. At this point, you might ask one more logical question. Is it possible to completely rid oneself of the predator's consciousness to be fully in spirit? The answer is no, not completely. But don't rush to despair. It might sound strange, but the predator's consciousness is actually a part of the sorceress nature of a person born on this planet. This consciousness will accompany anyone who lives until their death. The mundane consciousness, so to speak, is the dark side of the magical nature. However, despite this, the influence of the predator's consciousness on life can be significantly reduced by making a choice toward responsibility and spirit. Sorcerers say that one should not fight evil, but rather develop virtue. In other words, make true consciousness the dominant force in your life. When you do this, the predator will retract its claws, withdraw its fangs from the heart of your life, and retreat to its distant, dark den. One that spirit will permanently seal with the philosopher's stone, which is your noble, divine soul. The third sorceress idea states, to defeat the predator, one must be a peaceful warrior. A peaceful warrior wages war against their own stupidity and for freedom from the imprisonment of the predator's consciousness. This is the only war worthy of a person as a magical being. Stupidity is not intellectual underdevelopment, but the total disregard for one's sorceress nature. Stupidity is submitting to the predator's consciousness. From this, we can deduce that a person gains true reason and wisdom only when they awaken the consciousness of spirit within themselves and entrust their higher self with the management of their life. Stupidity cultivates self-pity and blocks attention to internal magical changes. These inner changes inevitably lead to external transformations. Hence, a person's external life embodies their internal state. A peaceful warrior understands that by conquering and eliminating stupidity within themselves, they will ease the burden of all humanity. They will be able to express their magical nature for the good of all. The inability to think in terms of the greater good of humanity and the unwillingness to work toward that good is a manifestation of the predator's consciousness. It is also one of the many forms of stupidity and the atrophy of the higher aspirations of the soul. A person strong in spirit is inseparably connected to all and to each. To think or feel otherwise is foolish and unworthy of someone who has awakened their magical nature. For the sorcerer, it is clear that changes in personal, familial, and social spheres are rooted in the same laws that govern internal transformation. both on the individual level and on the level of a state, true change and evolution can only occur through the implementation of magical ideas and a philosophical, mystical perception of reality. This, in more concrete terms, means developing noble and highest moral principles within oneself, recognizing one's responsibility towards society and humanity, and rejecting and distancing oneself from stupidity and base animal impulses fueled by the predator's consciousness. A good person, just like a good state, can only be built by the force of the highest principle, which reveals itself in each individual through noble, moral, and rational ideas that are embraced as the foundation of life. The transmutation of the soul from the base consciousness of the predator to the consciousness of the divine soul, aligned with its higher nature, is the essence of transcendental sorcery. Sorcery brings peace into a person's life and makes human life a magical piece of the world. Sorcery is the path of the peaceful warrior. The peaceful warrior fights against their own stupidity, for themselves, for all people, for their state on earth, and for the heavenly state from which the peaceful warrior came to earth and which people have come to call the universe.